Colonel Voronov stood in front of the rusty door of the bunker. He clutched an Army dog tag in his hand. It belonged to Private Belov, who had disappeared 14 years ago. Behind him, 2 Special Forces soldiers were breathing heavily. Their breath turned into steam. It was August, but it was cold in the forest. Too cold for August. The door was open. Fresh footprints led inside. Before we begin the story, please tell us which city you are from. We are very interested in where you are watching our video from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your rating. Someone had beaten them to it. August 15th, 1990. 5:30 in the morning. Severny Training Center, Arkhangelsk region. Sergeant Kravchenko was checking the equipment. 12 conscripts lined up at checkpoint number 3. A routine forced march. 20 kilometers through the forest to the Medved training ground. Private Belov adjusted his automatic rifle. He had 3 months left to serve. Masha was waiting for him at home. He kept her photo under his uniform. Fog enveloped the trees. Visibility was no more than 50 meters. We moved forward in single file. The distance between us was 5 meters. Silence. This was a training exercise, not a walk. Kravchenko went first. Belov followed him. Then the rest. They entered the forest at 5:47. At the unit headquarters, Major Semenov looked at his watch. It was 7:30. Kravchenko's group should have made contact an hour ago. The radio was silent. "Comrade Major, maybe the radio is broken?" Semenov shook his head. Kravchenko had 2 radios and signal flares. At 8 a.m., he sent out a search party, 15 men with dogs. Lieutenant Voronov from the military prosecutor's office joined them. Young, fresh out of school, his first serious case. They found the tracks quickly. Army boot prints led along the route, clear even, no signs of panic. At the 7th kilometer, the tracks veered sharply off the trail. They disappeared into the dense forest. The dogs became agitated. A sheepdog named Grom refused to go any further. She whined and backed away. The group leader, Captain Rybakov, took out a map. There was nothing in that direction, only an old clearing and abandoned warehouses. The tracks led to the clearing. And there they just stopped. 12 pairs of tracks led to nowhere. It was as if the soldiers had vanished into thin air. Voronov crouched down. The last footprint was clear. Right boot, size 42. And then nothing. No broken branches, no trampled grass. Maybe they were picked up by a vehicle? Rybakov shook his head. No tire tracks. And the road was 3 kilometers away. Voronov stood up. He looked around. To the right was a thick spruce forest. To the left was a swamp. Ahead was a clearing overgrown with bushes. Something glinted in the bushes. Voronov approached. He picked up the object. A compass. An army compass with a stamped number. The needle spun wildly, unable to find north. "Comrade Captain." One of the soldiers in the search party was waving his arm. He was standing by an old pine tree 30 meters from the clearing. There was a fresh mark on the bark. 3 parallel stripes, scratched with a bayonet. An army sign. Danger ahead. But there was nothing ahead. Only forest. Voronov took out his notebook. He sketched a map of the area. He marked the place where the tracks ended. The place where the compass was found. The tree with the mark. The 3 points formed an almost perfect triangle. By noon, the search parties had combed through 10 square kilometers of forest. Nothing. Not a scrap of fabric. Not a bullet. Not a trace. 12 people couldn't just disappear. Panic broke out in the unit. The regiment commander, Colonel Zotov, summoned Voronov to his office. "Lieutenant, you are an investigator. What happened?" Voronov was silent. He didn't know. Desertion? But where could 12 men in full gear have gone? And why? An attack? But there were no signs of a struggle. An accident? The swamp? But the dogs didn't smell death. "I need a day, Comrade Colonel. I'll check the unit's archives. Maybe something happened in this area before." Zotov nodded. You have 24 hours. Then I'll have to report to Moscow. Voronov sat in the unit's archives until nightfall. The folders marked secret were covered in dust. No one had opened them in years. In the folder for the year 1962, he found a strange document, an order to create a special facility. Its name, Bunker 47. Its purpose, a research base. Its location was a square of forest between the training ground and the training center. That was where the soldiers had disappeared. Voronov leafed through the pages. Most of the text was smeared with black paint. Only a few words were legible. Experiment, isolation, psychological impact. In the folder for 1975, there was an order to preserve the facility. The reason was not specified. Voronov copied down the coordinates. Tomorrow he would go there. Alone. He couldn't sleep that night. He thought about the 12 soldiers. Where were they now? Were they alive? At 4 in the morning, he was awakened by the duty officer. A call from Moscow. The KGB is taking control of the case. Voronov is ordered to hand over all materials and terminate the investigation. A major in plain clothes took Voronov's folders and notebook. But Voronov did not write down the coordinates of the bunker. He memorized them. The official version was desertion. 12 soldiers were declared wanted. Their families were told that their sons had betrayed their homeland. Belova's mother did not believe it. She came to the unit. She cried in Zotov's office. Her Antosha could not have run away. He wrote letters every week. He was going to get married after his service. Voronov saw her tears through the half-open door, and he promised himself that he would find out the truth. A week later, he was transferred to another unit, to Murmansk, far away from the scene of the incident. But he did not forget. He kept the coordinates of the bunker in his memory for 14 years. The year was 2004. Bryansk Reserve Colonel Mikhail Voronov worked for a security company. A quiet life, an apartment, a dacha, an adult daughter. On the morning of August 3rd, the postman brought a letter. No return address. Inside was an army dog tag and a piece of paper. Numbers were written on the piece of paper in shaky handwriting. Coordinates, those very coordinates. Voronov took the dog tag, Anton Belov, unit number, blood type. There were scratches on the back of the tag. Fresh ones. They formed numbers, 47, 12, 90, bunker 47, 12 people, the year 90. Someone knew. Someone wanted Voronov to return. He called an old friend. Major Semyonov had retired, but their connections remained. 2 days later, Voronov had a team. Psychiatrist Elena Krylova, a specialist in extreme conditions. Engineer Pavel Nosov, an expert on Soviet bunkers. 2 Special Forces soldiers, the Koshkin brothers. On August 5th, they left for the Arkhangelsk region. Officially, it was a tourist trip. Unofficially, it was a search for the truth. The forest had not changed in 14 years. The same fir trees, the same smell of pine needles and dampness, the same clearing. Nosov took out his device. The ground-penetrating radar showed voids underground. 300 meters from the place of disappearance, there was a large anomaly. Something metallic. Depth, 15 meters. They found the entrance under the roots of a fallen pine tree. A concrete slab camouflaged with moss. On the slab were barely visible numbers. 47. The Koshkin brothers lifted the slab. Underneath was a metal door. Rusty but sturdy. The door was open. There were fresh fingerprints on the handle. Someone had been here recently. Maybe yesterday. Maybe an hour ago. Voronov took out his pistol. The others followed him down into the bunker. The concrete corridor led downwards. Soviet posters covered the walls. They were faded, but still legible. Be vigilant. The enemy never sleeps. The air was fresh. The ventilation was working. 10 meters down, the corridor branched off in 3 directions. Above each was a sign. Living quarters. Command post. Medical unit. Footprints on the floor led to the living quarters. The first room was empty. Bunk beds, made, as if someone had just gotten up. In the second room, there was a table. On the table, there were cards, dominoes, an unfinished game. In the third room, there was a radio. It was turned on, but silent. Krylova picked up a newspaper from the table. Pravda, August 16, 1990. The day after the disappearance, Nosov checked the generator. Diesel, Soviet-made. Enough fuel for 20 years. But the meter showed something strange. The generator had been running continuously for 14 years. Someone had been living here all this time. They found a logbook in the command post. The last entry was dated yesterday, August 4th, 2004. Everything is quiet. We are waiting. The handwriting was familiar. Voronov had seen it in reports. Sergeant Kravchenko. They were alive, all 12 of them, 14 years in the bunker. But where were they now? The answer came from the medical unit. Krylova's scream echoed through the corridors. Voronov ran toward the scream. In the medical unit, people were lying on beds, 12 people in military uniforms from the 90s. They weren't moving, but they were breathing. Belov was third from the left. Voronov recognized him from a photo in his personal file. Only he didn't look 35. He looked 21, just like on the day he disappeared. All 12 looked young. It was as if time had stopped. Krylova checked the pulse of the nearest soldier. 40 beats per minute. Slowed metabolism. Body temperature, 32 degrees. They were in a coma, or something similar to a coma. There was an IV on the bedside table next to each bed. The IV contained a clear liquid. Nosov took a sample. From the smell, it wasn't saline. Something else. Voronov approached Belov. He touched his shoulder. Private Belov, can you hear me? His eyelids fluttered. His lips moved. Belov whispered something. Voronov leaned closer. Can't leave. Waiting. Who's waiting? Belov opened his eyes. His pupils were dilated. His gaze was empty. Those who forced us to hide. Belov closed his eyes again. His pulse quickened to 60. Then it dropped again. Krylova took smelling salts out of her bag. She held it to the soldier's nose. No reaction. They're under the influence of something. Not drugs, something else. Nosov examined the IVs. Each one was marked with a series of letters and numbers. SP-47M. The date of manufacture was 1989. In the corner of the medical unit stood a safe. It was open. Inside were ampules with the same markings. And a folder. Voronov took the folder. Experiment Protocol Number 47. Classified as top secret. First page. Objective: to study the possibility of long-term preservation of personnel in the conditions of nuclear war. Page 2. The drug SP-47M slows down metabolism tenfold. Animal testing has been successful. Page 3. Side effects: hallucinations, distorted perception of time, partial amnesia. Page 4 was missing. Torn out. Fifth. Experiment terminated. All materials are to be destroyed. But the materials were not destroyed. And the bunker was not blown up. It was simply mothballed. The Koshkin brothers checked the rest of the premises. In the warehouse, there were food supplies for 20 years. Canned food, cereals, powdered milk. Some of it had been eaten. In the armory, there were 12 automatic rifles. Everything was in place. Not a single bullet had been fired. In the shower room, there were signs of recent use. Wet towels. One of them had woken up, walked around the bunker, kept a journal. Voronov returned to Belov. He touched his shoulder again. Harder. Anton, this is Colonel Voronov. I've come for you. Where is Sergeant Kravchenko? Belov flinched. He opened his eyes. This time his gaze was meaningful. The sergeant is on guard duty. Guarding. Where is the guard post? Belov raised his hand. He pointed to the ceiling. "Upstairs, at the entrance," he said. "Don't let anyone in." Voronov nodded to Koshkin. They went out to check the entrance. "Anton, what happened? Why are you here?" Belov licked his dry lips. He spoke with difficulty. "We were on a forced march. Fog. The sergeant heard. Voices. Ordered us to follow. We went. Then a blackout. Woke up here." "Who gave the order?" "I don't know. A voice on the radio. A code word." "Shelter," the sergeant said. "Exercises. Secret exercises. 14 years have passed, Anton." Belov shook his head. "No. A week, maybe 2. The sergeant keeps a calendar." Krylova gave Belov a glucose injection. His pupils narrowed. His breathing quickened. "Doctor, can we bring them out of this state?" "Yes, we can, but not abruptly. Their bodies won't be able to handle it. We need to gradually reduce the dose of the drug." "How long?" 2 days at least, and that's if there are no complications. The Koshkin brothers returned. Their faces were worried. "Comrade Colonel, there's someone upstairs. There are footprints around the entrance. They're fresh. And a fire. It's still warm." Voronov took out his radio. There was no connection. The signal didn't reach deep underground. "We need to go up, find out who's there." The older Koshkin shook his head. "There are at least 3 of them. The footprints are different sizes. And they're armed. We saw shell casings, fresh ones. A trap. Someone had lured them here, used Belov's token as bait. But who and why?" Nosov studied the ventilation system. The pipes led upstairs, but they were too narrow. There was no other way out. "We're trapped." Krylova continued to examine the soldiers. 3 had signs of pneumonia. 2 had vitamin deficiency, but overall their condition was stable. They survived here. Somehow they survived. There were entries in Kravchenko's journal, short, military style, concise. Day 1, found supplies, organized daily life. Day 10, the radio is silent, decided to wait. Day 30, attempted to leave, there was shooting above, returned. Day 60, found the drug. Instructions, decided to use it. The entries became less frequent, once a month, once every 6 months. Year 5, everything is calm. We wait. Year 10, we've gotten used to it. This is our home now. Year 14, the end is near. I can feel it. The last entry is from yesterday. They're coming. I sent a signal. Kravchenko. He sent a letter to Voronov. But how did he find out the address? How did he know that Voronov was looking for them? A radio transmitter was found in the command post. Old, tube-based, but working. The frequency was tuned to a wave that no one had used since the 90s. Nosov turned on the receiver. A voice came through the static. "I repeat, Object 47. If you can hear me, respond." Time is running out. The voice was familiar. Voronov couldn't remember where he had heard it before. Should we pick up the phone? No. First, let's find out who's upstairs. Junior Koshkin took out a periscope. Military, foldable. He stuck it into the ventilation pipe. IC-3. In camouflage. No insignia. Weapons. AK-74. They're sitting by the fire, waiting. Can you see their faces? One turned around, about 50 years old. Scar on his cheek. Voronov tensed up. A scar on his cheek? He knew only one person with such a scar. KGB Major Arkhipov, the same one who took over the case in '90. But Arkhipov was dead. 5 years ago. Heart attack. Voronov had read the obituary. Or was he not dead? The radio came back to life. "Mikhail Petrovich, I know you're there. Come out. We need to talk." Arkipov's voice. "Definitely." Voronov picked up the microphone. "You should be dead, Comrade Major." Laughter in the speaker. "Death is a relative concept, just like time. You found the soldiers, right? Alive? What do you want?" "To end the experiment. 14 years is long enough. It's time to wake them up. Why? Because they know things they shouldn't know. And now you know too. Voronov turned off the microphone. He turned to the team. We have a problem. A big problem. Krylova checked the medical supplies. There was no antidote for the SP-47M drug. Only glucose, vitamins, and stimulants. I can try to bring them out gradually, but it's risky. Do it. Start with Belov. She removed the IV. She administered glucose with vitamins. Belov groaned. His eyelids fluttered. Cold. So cold. Krylova covered him with a blanket. She checked his temperature. 33 degrees. It was slowly rising. Nosov studied the bunker's construction. He found something interesting. Comrade Colonel, look, emergency protocol. In case of a threat of capture, flood the bunker. Water from the underground river. But we'll all drown. Not everyone. There's an airtight capsule in the medical unit for 4 people. 1 hour of autonomous operation. 4 out of 18. Not an option. Then we'll break through. Senior Koshkin checked the weapons. 12 automatic rifles. Ammunition. 2 magazines per barrel. Enough against the 3 upstairs. If there are only 3. The radio turned on again. You have an hour. Then we'll come down ourselves. And believe me, you won't like it. Belov opened his eyes. His gaze was clear. I remember everything. God, 14 years. Calm down, Anton. You're safe. No one is safe. They used us. Who? The project. The secret project. We overheard. By accident. Radio interception. The plan. The conservation plan. What plan? Belov tried to sit up. Krylova held him back. Not all personnel. Only the young. The healthy. For recovery. After the war. What war? The one that was supposed to start. In 91. But didn't. And we were already here. Forgotten. Voronov understood. A Cold War project. Preparation for nuclear conflict. Preservation of personnel to rebuild the army after the apocalypse. But the war didn't start. The USSR collapsed, and 12 soldiers remained in the bunker. Forgotten. Unnecessary. Did Kravchenko understand? Belov nodded. In the 5th year, when the radio was silent, when no one came, he understood, but it was too late. The drug, we were already dependent on it. Without it, death. Krylova checked the composition of the drug. The narcotic component, physical dependence, withdrawal syndrome could kill. They are trapped in their own bodies. 14 years. The other soldiers began to stir. The drug was running out in the IVs. Their bodies were reacting. Moans, screams. One tried to stand up, fell down. Krylova ran between the beds, gave injections, calmed them down. I need help. They're all waking up. Nosov and the Koshkin brothers helped restrain the soldiers. They were delirious. They shouted names. They called for their mothers. One of them, who looked like a boy, was crying. Mom! I want my mom. Where's my mom? Voronov remembered. Private Sergeyev. 18 years old in 1990. He must be 32 now, but he looked 18. His mother died 3 years ago. She never found out what happened to her son. In the far corner of the medical unit, someone was coughing. A hoarse, raucous cough. Sergeant Kravchenko, the only one who wasn't hooked up to an IV. He sat on his cot. He looked at Voronov. His eyes showed complete understanding of what was happening. Colonel Voronov, I remember you. You were looking for us. I was looking, Sergeant. In vain. You shouldn't have found us. Why? Because we know the truth, and they kill us for the truth. Kravchenko stood up. He swayed. Voronov supported him. The sergeant was light, as if he had dried up. Are they up there? Yes. How many? 3? Maybe more. Kravchenko smiled. Arkhipov? Do you know him? He came here 5 years ago. He offered a deal. Silence in exchange for freedom. I refused. Why? Because he couldn't give me freedom. Only death. A quiet one, without witnesses. Kravchenko walked over to the safe. He took out a bundle wrapped in oilcloth. I was preparing for this day. I knew they would come. He unwrapped the cloth. Inside was a Makarov pistol and 3 magazines. Where did it come from? I found it in the commander's safe, along with this. I took out a yellowed envelope. On it was written, "Open in case of war." Inside was an order, signed by the Minister of Defense of the USSR, 1989. In the event of hostilities, activate the shelter protocol. Preserve the selected personnel. The preservation period is until further notice. We were guinea pigs, Colonel, like rats. Only we didn't know it. Voronov reread the order. At the bottom was a note in small handwriting. The test subjects mustn't know the true purpose of the experiment. When did you realize this? Right away, when we woke up in the bunker. But I didn't tell the soldiers. Why? Let them think it's a drill, that they're looking for us, that we're needed. 14 years of deception, 14 years of hope. Those are different things. Belov got up from his bunk. He held onto the wall. "Sergeant, what's going on? Why have we been here so long?" Kravchenko looked at him. His eyes showed fatigue. "War, Anton. There was a war. We waited until it was safe to leave." "What war? With whom?" "It doesn't matter. The main thing is that it's over. We're going home." Belov smiled, weakly but sincerely. "Masha? I'll see Masha." Voronov turned away. "Masha got married 8 years ago. She has 2 children. She thinks Belov is a deserter." Krylova raised her hand. Silence. "Do you hear that?" Footsteps. Upstairs. Lots of footsteps. Junior Koshkin looked through the periscope. There are already 8 of them. They're coming down. Voronov checked the pistol magazine. 15 rounds. Not enough against 8 men. Kravchenko handed out automatic rifles to the soldiers who had woken up. They took the weapons uncertainly. Their hands were shaking. "Remember training? Short bursts. Save your ammunition. Comrade Sergeant, are we going to shoot our own people?" "They're not our own, Petrov. They're the enemy. But they're Russian." Kravchenko grabbed the soldier by the shoulders, shook him. "Russians don't keep Russians in a bunker for 14 years. Got it?" Petrov nodded. He cocked the bolt. The footsteps were getting closer. Voronov positioned his men. The Koshkin brothers at the entrance. Nosov at the generator. If anything happened, he would cut the power. Krylova prepared syringes with stimulants. If the fighting started, the soldiers would need doping. Arkapov's voice came from behind the door. "Last chance, Voronov. Come out on your own." "We won't touch the soldiers," Voronov replied loudly. "What will happen to them?" "Rehabilitation, new documents, a decent life." "You're lying." Laughter. "Of course I'm lying. They'll die. Quietly, painlessly. An overdose of the drug. Their hearts will stop in their sleep. Why? Because the dead don't talk, and they have something to say." Kravchenko raised his machine gun. "Enough talk." He fired a round at the door. The deafening sound echoed in the confined space. Return fire. Bullets pierced the metal. Ricochets. One of the soldiers cried out. He grabbed his shoulder. Blood. Krylova rushed to him. She bandaged him on the fly. Nosov turned off the lights. Darkness. The emergency red lights came on. Everything looked like a nightmare. The door was knocked down. Grenades flew inside. Flashbangs. A flash. A crash. Ringing in the ears. Voronov fired blindly. He could only see shadows. Someone grabbed him from behind. A struggle. A blow with a rifle butt. The enemy fell. Screams. Gunshots. Moans. Junior Koshkin fell. A red stain on his chest. Senior rushed to his brother, covered him with his body. Kravchenko stood in the center of the medical unit, fired short bursts, calmly, methodically. 3 attackers lay on the floor, not moving. The rest retreated into the corridor, regrouping. Nosov turned on the light. The scene was horrific. Junior Koshkin was dead. 2 soldiers were wounded. Voronov had blood on his face. A fragment had hit him, but they held their ground. Arkhipov shouted from the corridor, "You don't stand a chance. Surrender!" Kravchenko reloaded his automatic rifle. "We have something better than a chance." "What?" "Nothing to lose." He took a grenade out of his pocket. "A real one, a combat grenade." "Where did you get it?" Voronov couldn't believe his eyes. "From the same safe. 3 of them, just in case. This is madness. We'll all die." Kravchenko shrugged. "We're already dead. We've been dead for 14 years. We just didn't know it." Belov raised his rifle. "I'm with the sergeant. Better to die standing." The other soldiers nodded. They lined up, 12 shadows, 12 ghosts from the past. Krylova bandaged the last wounded soldier. She approached Voronov. "I have an idea. The drug. If we give the attackers a large dose." "How?" "Spray it. Ventilation. Nosov can redirect the flow." Nosov nodded. 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes." He climbed into the ventilation shaft. A crash. The clang of metal. Arkhipov lost his patience. "Blow up the door." Explosion. The door flew off its hinges. Smoke grenades were thrown inside. Gray, acrid smoke filled the room. Blind shooting. Screams. Swearing. Voronov fired at the flashes. He counted his bullets. 3 left. Kravchenko pulled the pin. He counted. 3, 2, stop. A voice from the ceiling. From the speakers. Everyone froze. "This is Major General Sokolov speaking. Ministry of Defense." "Cease fire! Everyone cease fire!" Arkhipov shouted. "It's a trap! Shoot, I repeat." "General Sokolov, the operation is cancelled. Major Arkhipov, you are under arrest." The sound of helicopters. Lots of helicopters. The sound of boots upstairs. Dozens of people. Soldiers descended into the bunker. But not the ones who were with Arkhipov. GRU Special Forces. Professionals. "Everyone stay where you are. Weapons on the floor." Kravchenko did not lower his machine gun. "How do we know you're not with them?" The general entered the medical unit. Gray-haired, tired, medals on his chest. "Sergeant Kravchenko?" "Yes, sir. I am General Sokolov, Private Sokolov's father. From your unit." Kravchenko lowered his rifle. Vitya Sokolov, so thin, played the guitar. "My son. Do you remember him?" "I remember. A good guy. He wanted to go home, to his girlfriend." The general nodded. His eyes were moist. "Thank you for saving him. For saving everyone." "But General, I know, CV-47M. That damn experiment. We've been looking for you, all these years." But the records were destroyed. Arkhipov and his men. Why? To cover up their crimes. Illegal experiments, embezzlement, murder. You were witnesses. Unwanted witnesses. Voronov lowered his pistol. "How did you find us? Your signal, the radio transmission. We intercepted it. And the letter. Professor Volkov sent you a letter." Volkov? The former scientific director of the project. He was dying of cancer. He decided to confess. He told everything. Where the bunker was, where the soldiers were, what had been done to them. Krylova checked the pulse of the wounded. "They need to be hospitalized. Urgently." The general nodded. "The helicopters are waiting. The best doctors. Everything will be fine." Belov sat down on the bed. He was trembling. Can I make a call? Home? Of course. Anything is possible." "Masha? Is she waiting?" The general paused. "We'll find her. We'll definitely find her." The soldiers began to be carried out on stretchers. Carefully. Gently. Kravchenko stopped at the exit. He turned to Voronov. "Thank you, Colonel, for not forgetting. It's my duty, Sergeant." "No. Duty can be forgotten. But you remembered. You remembered for 14 years. He left. Last. Like a commander. Only the dead remained in the bunker, and the echoes of the past." Voronov went upstairs. The sun was blinding. August. Warm. The helicopters flew away one after another. They carried away the living dead. They returned them to the world. The general approached Voronov. "You are a hero, Colonel. I will recommend you for an award." "No need. I was just looking for the truth. The truth is the greatest reward and the hardest punishment. What will happen to them? Treatment, rehabilitation, a new life? The state will take care of them. And their families? They'll learn the truth. Finally, learn the truth." The last helicopter took off. Belov and Kravchenko were in it. Voronov watched as the machine disappeared into the horizon. He thought about time, about 14 years, about 12 destinies. The phone rang. His daughter. "Dad, where are you?" "I'm worried. I'm on my way home, Lena. I'll be there soon." "Did you find what you were looking for?" Voronov paused. He looked at the abandoned entrance to the bunker. "Yes, I found it." A year later, Voronov received a letter from Belov. "Comrade Colonel, I am writing to you from Vologda. I am living with my sister. I am undergoing treatment. The doctors say I will recover. I found Masha. She is married. She is happy. I did not want to ruin her life. Let her remember me as I was when I was young, the one who wrote her letters from the army. I am working on a construction site. It's okay. I'm getting used to the new world. It's strange, but it's alive, and we were dead for so long that any life seems like a miracle. Thank you for bringing us back, maybe not home, but back to life. Sincerely, Anton Belov." Voronov folded the letter. He put it in the safe, next to the token. The story of 12 soldiers had ended. But how many more were there? Forgotten, lost, waiting in their bunkers? Voronov knew he would search. It was his duty, his curse, his calling, to bring the dead back to life. The news said that a geological expedition had gone missing in Siberia. 7 people. They searched for a week. They didn't find them. Voronov opened a map. He marked the spot. Tomorrow he would call Sokolov. He would offer his help, because somewhere out there, in the taiga, there might be another bunker, another secret, another group of forgotten people. And they are waiting, waiting to be found. How many more secret bunkers with people inside do you think there might be in the former USSR? And is it worth looking for them if the truth might be worse than the unknown?